So I wanted to talk about tithing because I want y'all to have money. Man. So tithing is weird. Well, all of Christianity is weird because we grow up thinking Christianity is like a maybe, maybe not. God kind of shows up when he wants to, doesn't quite show up, heals some people, doesn't. And there is a great deal of discernment within God on who he does help and who he doesn't, because I understand that it seems random. But as people possessed by the Holy Spirit, which is the Spirit of God dwelling within us, possessing us, we have the ability to enact articles of heaven. We have the ability to help pull heaven to earth. We have the ability to do stuff. Mankind was designed to be the rulers of earth realm. So God is ruler of heaven and earth, and we are rulers of earth. We are kings and queens. And when we forget about that, we start acting like children. We are kings and queens. Earth is under our control, and God gives us not only heavenly power, but a lot of heavenly technology. Like, I kid you not, if we wanted to heal the world and reduce pollution, if we worked with heaven, suddenly new technologies would exist like that. I've tested this in many ways. I know it to be true, but we'll get into that in another episode another time. Today we're talking about tithing. So now that we know God is real, I'm sure by now you've prayed to see miracles, prayed to talk to him, prayed. Remember, the rule is you have to harass God. Well, that was terrifying. There's a flash flood warning in the area. I wonder if the demonic's trying to stop me. Should I stop the flash flooding, or should I allow the rain to happen? God, let the rain continue to happen, but don't let it be dangerous. But the rain is beautiful. Let people be safe tonight. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Oh, sorry, my phone, like the alarm in my phone went off when it did that flash flood warning. So I was like, tithing. Oh, yeah, the demonic definitely doesn't want y'all to know about tithing. Definitely not. So y'all know that, like, I have the gift of healing. Like, that's been very obvious, and I apologize I haven't gotten more evidence in videos, but there will be some, especially as it's growing, because I want to travel and I want to heal people. With that in mind, tithing is also very real. I myself was never able to hold on to money my entire life. It always slipped through my fingers, no matter how many jobs I earned and I had and how many hours I worked. I could never hold on to money. Just like stuff would just randomly happen, and stuff would randomly happen, and stuff would randomly happen that would pull it away. And I watched these parents I knew, no matter how many jobs the dad had, like it just like clockwork. And because of my spiritual sense, I would notice the clockwork all the time. And finally, I was at church one day. I was 26, and this pastor, John McClure, one of the best pastors I've ever met, humble, loving. His words were like honey, like just listen to the way he loved people and God, like you just felt it. I met angels there. Well, I met at least an angel. He knew there were angels there. He had healed people before. I don't know that he had the gifts, but men of faith and even men not of faith who call upon God by like being dutiful and going out and working, we'll see a lot of miracles. And then some people are also given the gifts to do miracles regularly. So I knew him to be a great man of God. If you're familiar with the Vineyard Church group, across like the US, he helped form that, as I understand. So he says one day, it's important to tithe or God puts a small hole in your pocket and all your money falls out. And that, I was like, I wish people told me that, because before it was like tithing is like a, if you sort of can or cannot. A lot of people can get away with tithing. I couldn't. And it didn't make sense, like, oh, this God loves me, but I'm supposed to be poor. Like, okay, I get it, there's suffering and God's going to do what he's going to do, but it just seemed weird. Like, I can't be rich, I have to be poor. I can't, like, grow my wealth into something great, into an empire of business. I was so frustrated. It's such a headache having your car break down all the time and random bills show up and just everything. So I started tithing, and ever since that day, I have not had to worry about money. And I don't budget. Like, I try to be like fiscally responsible, but like I kind of let it do whatever. And then the amount I need is just always there. And sometimes God will throw more shifts my way. So like, it got so bad, I'd look at my schedule for the next 2 weeks at my job, and if I had a whole bunch of shifts, I would know that I spent a whole lot of money, like, in the upcoming week, and needed the money the weeks after that. And then at times I would say, like, man, I'm tired of working so many shifts, because I had a job where I'd work between 10 and 40 hours a week. At the time, I was working at a movie theater in Tyler. And I would think, like, I don't want to work a lot this week. I want some time off. And so I would make sure I spent like almost nothing. Like, I'd buy groceries and eat in and use a lot of rice. And then all of a sudden, I'd have like no shifts, and I'd be like, because I don't need the money. I think there was 3 years I never had to buy a grocery. Like, I would come home from work and my roommate just would always be cooking something, and then he'd always have some leftover that he wouldn't eat, and it would just go bad. And so I would just eat that. There's been so many times when just like, I would think I would have the money, and I'd have the money, and I don't have the money, and I'd have the money, and I'd have the money, and I'd have the money when I think I didn't. And a couple times I'd have to borrow. I got a little overspent, and I borrowed some money, but I paid it back the next week, and I didn't have to stress about it. And that is something I know a lot of y'all wish you could be a part of, is just always having financial security. Tithing is the first 10% you make before taxes. And if you don't have a lot of money, oh my God, I can't tithe right now because I don't have money. It's even more important that you tithe. I had a friend, she was always poor and stressed, kind of that real angry, mean, violent stress. And she was real into debt with her roommate, and I was dating her roommate at the time. And her roommate says, you need to talk to Josh. And she and I, we were okay. She was had a real intense personality, and I have kind of a diffuser personality, but I'm not afraid for confrontation, and that bothers aggressive people. And she said, well, how would I talk to Josh? And she says, my girlfriend said, he knows Christian voodoo, which is her playful way of saying just like the Christianity that Josh does happens. Like, it doesn't make sense. I don't know why it works, but it works. And she's just like, really? My girlfriend said, yeah. So she goes, what was this about? Your girlfriend said to talk to you. I was like, what's wrong? I don't have money. I'm like, oh, you need a tithe. What's tithing? You give the first 10% of everything you earn, like gifts and loans don't count, like birthday presents and stuff, to the church, to a Christ-based organization. You can't give it to like a Save the Environment fund. It has to be a Christ-based organization. And if there's no churches that you like, you can give it to a homeless person. Give it to a hobo. Because this girl isn't Christian. She might have believed once, but she just got turned off by it. She's like, I don't believe. And I'm like, God doesn't really care. God cares that you don't believe, but he doesn't care that, it's the rule that governs the universe. It's going to happen whether or not you believe in God. And she's like, well, what do I got to lose? Like, yeah, exactly. I tell her, do it. Give it exactly 2 weeks to show up, that you can see the results. And, maybe tell God, I apologize for not tithing. Please take care of me. Within a month, she had a new job that paid her more money, that gave her better hours, that was putting her on the track to be a manager or a trainer. And her parents bought her a car. And I got her to write a testimony so we could have some evidence. I started tithing about 8 years ago at the urging of my best friend. That was my girlfriend that she's calling her best friend. After hearing my struggles and how I never seemed to have money and never could get ahead, Josh encouraged me to start tithing so that God could bless me by helping others. I was hesitant because this made no sense to me, as I was trying to keep the little money I already had, not give it away. I prayed about it and decided, okay, God, you win. I'll give it a try. It was hard at first, but sure, I started seeing little blessings. If being able to get a coffee, I never would have had money for, be there, to I need money to pay my registration, and it's there right when I need it. Okay, so basically, I think, because I think she typed this up on Facebook, and so it got a little mangled. Oh, this is from my other friend. Okay, I'm sorry. So my best friend. So she's talking about me. I'm the best friend. So this is a different person than my girlfriend's roommate. This is my friend from California. I apologize about the confusion. So this is from my best friend at the time from California. So her writing is really kind of garbled because she texted it. But she said, I started tithing about 8 years ago at the urging of my best friend. After hearing my struggles and how I never seemed to have money and never could get ahead, he encouraged me to start tithing so that God could bless me by helping others. I was hesitant because this made no sense to me, as I was trying to keep the little money I already had, not give it away. I prayed about it and decided, okay, God, you win. I'll give it a try. It was hard at first, but I started seeing little blessings. And then she, with bad grammar, kind of says now she can get a coffee instead of having no money for nothing. I never had the money, but it was there when I needed it. All I had to do is trust God that if I was willing... Okay, the grammar's really bad. But basically what happened is my other friend from California had it really bad. A lot of her clothing was worn. She was just always in debt and always stressed and always crying and always just not understanding why God didn't love her. And what was weird is I always wanted to tell her, but I'd feel this voice be like, no, she needs to learn. No, she's okay. No, she needs to learn. No, she's okay. No, all things happen in their time. No, we'll get to it. No, it's, and eventually, because I had a lot to learn to become the Joshua I am now, the Paladin 1, leader of the Paladin Corps. And so I realized that this voice wasn't my own, it was demonic. it was trying to pretend to be a Christian voice, an angelic voice, but pretending that this suffering was helping my friend. But this was not a suffering, a Christian suffering where you learn to be a stronger, better Christian. This was Christian suffering, or this was bad suffering. This was awful suffering. Told her to tithe. Have to tithe. You'll never have a problem again. And she said, well, I'm poor and I need money. And I was like, no, you're poor because you're not tithing. So I've taught about 12 people to tithe because I'm very scientific about the Bible. If I can reproduce results, maybe I can reproduce the results on a bigger scale. If we can reproduce this results on a bigger scale, then it is a rule of Christianity and thus the end of the universe. And that matters because tithing cures poverty. And what's even more important is you can tithe for others. I had a friend who was always borrowing money. I started tithing. I found out how much he made a week. I tithed for him. Suddenly never needed to borrow money ever. First 10% goes to a Christian church. I can't promise it'll work if you donate to a Mormon church. I promise it'll work if you do Jehovah's Witness. You want Christian, Catholic, I guess Lutheran if they're around, but Christ-based church, biblical in foundation, or a homeless person. It's fine too. Don't give it to your friend who's sleeping on your couch. Like, go and give it to someone who's needy. And you can always ask God. He'll always tell you. But the reason I'm telling you this is I know how awful it is to be poor. I don't want any of you to be poor. And you don't have to send it to me. I'm not here to make money. I'm here to do good works and, have a good adventure with God. I like adventure and I like a good time, like a hobbit, like, meals with friends and family. I should do an episode about that. So that's where the real wealth of life is. You get to see your friends and family, have good meals, listen to good music. It's good to chase money. Or not chase money, but it's good to get a good amount of money that can help your life. But don't think that having millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars is going to make your life happier. Money helps get rid of the horrible things in life and the stresses and the dangers. And it does help add a lot of happiness. I mean, you can't tell me you're not happy playing video games. But just remember, chase lots of wealth, different types of wealth. Time with your family, time with your girlfriend, time with your wife, time with your husband, time with your mom, time with your dad, time with your cousins, time with your grandparents. Sharing good meals. You can cook good meals. You don't always have to go out to eat. It's a lot cheaper. I've been poor for a lot of my life. I made enchiladas. Enchiladas are super cheap, super tasty. Buy a couple things of soda. A lot of anime is cheap now. A lot of movies are cheap now. You sit at home, watch a movie. You don't have to flash everything around, everything be fancy. When I was a bouncer, I have very humble clothes. I don't have chains and jewelry and, kind of overweight. But people always come and want my attention. I mean, yeah, it was largely because I was a bouncer. And so, that was kind of cool in a college town. But, if you're worried about riches, there's this interesting verse in the Bible that says, God provides me with delicious food in the face of my enemies. And if your enemy, in this case, is looking poor and feeling poor, you know how like you feel like everyone else has this great charisma. Maybe not all of you, but some of you, especially some of you that are young. You feel your clothes are ugly or old or not good and nice and rich, and you don't have good jewelry, and that's really important to you. Remember that verse. God provides me with good food in the face of my enemy. And your enemy here is looking shabby and ugly and like a, disheveled, like a homeless person. You'd think like, not washed, not bathed, scrungy. But you remember that. You remember that verse. God provides you with good food in the face of your enemy. And your enemy is being shabby and just kind of ugly, right? You want to impress your peers and the people you care about and the people you want to impress. You want to impress girls or boys or friends or, friends that are doing really well and becoming rich. Remember that verse. God provides good food in the face of my enemies. And you just start talking about your hobbies, talk about what you do, talk about what you want to do. Don't brag, don't ever brag. If you don't brag, it brings up your charisma, it brings up your qualities as a person, the qualities that can be measured and that count, that can be eaten like a spiritual steak, like a spiritual good piece of rich meat or wine. And if you ever feel ugly or just dirty, or like you feel like you smell bad socially, you ever feel like people don't admire you and you want to be socially admired, you want to be an equal to your friends, as cool, as good looking, maybe you aren't, maybe you aren't. You just say, God, Joshua said, Mr. Paladin 1 said, that you provide me with good food in the face of my enemies. And my enemy is not looking good and not looking great. Now, God's not going to like bling you out, but you'll notice all of a sudden you'll be more confident. You'll start talking clearly. You'll start wrapping the conversation together, making people laugh and smile. Man, if you can make people laugh and smile, or ask them intimate questions like, how are you doing? Is there anything I can help you with? How are you doing in your relationships? How are you doing with your boyfriend? How are you doing with your girlfriend? Maybe one of your buddies is having trouble with homework. Hey, if you're having trouble in a class, make sure you read the chapter before class. Makes classes easy breezy. Easy. Maybe one of your friends is having trouble getting her boyfriend to propose. Did you talk about marriage? Oh, you didn't talk about marriage. You've been together 5 years. You should go talk to him about marriage. Because if he says no, you can break up. And if he says meh, maybe you should break up. Pray that God gives you the character traits, the charisma you want, the admiration you're going for. And you can even ask him, how do I bring out my charisma so people see me as beautiful? How do I bring out my qualities so people can see them and interact with me? How do I be less shy? How do I show people who I am? Because to be less shy, you don't have to suddenly talk a lot, but you can just bring up something you like. Hey, did you see the last episode of Demon Slayer? They really ended that season well. What's your favorite Pokemon? Just, if you want to socialize and you're shy, talk about things that the person across from you likes. Because a lot of people always want to talk about themselves, and people generally don't try to talk about others. But tithe. Not having to worry about money takes away a lot of stress that allows your personality to come out, that allows you to grow. And this is why I believe in Christianity, because the rules work, the reasons work, the whys work. And a lot of people get angry that the first thing I talk about in Christianity is how to get what you want out of Christianity. But if I can prove that God shows up when we act according to the rules of creation, then I can prove the rest, right? I can tell you don't watch porn if I can prove that God provides. I can tell you don't sleep around, don't have adultery, don't have sex with married women or married men, because there's someone great for you. Or if you're already married and the marriage sucks, right, is awful, you can work with God to bond and become amazing. You can, and I'm not kidding, like no matter how awful your marriage is, there are ways. God will invent ways to make it perfect. So if there's no solution, that's earth talking. If there's no hope, that's demonic talking. Because heaven will invent ways for you to have a hyper successful relationship. So never ever doubt anything. If you're having a tough time in your marriage and you just know it's awful and you just hate everything, you start talking to God. Be like, hey, my marriage, I hate it. I hate myself, I hate her, or I hate myself, I hate him. And you say, what can I do to fill up her spirit? And then what can you do to fill up my spirit? And then what can we do to shine? Or maybe there's something you want in your marriage. You know, what can we do so that way there is real non-idiotic joy? So I know we all have the idea that like, oh, we get together and go through therapy and then we'll hate each other less, right? Because we don't believe that bad problems can ever go away, because we don't have a lot of experience with that. People who know, right? We've all seen those horrible marriages that no matter how much people work, it just doesn't work. Christianity is the power of creation, which is transformative and benevolent. So not only does it transform, it becomes 5 or 7 or 8 or 9 times as much from one action. You just pray and 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 pray. And I kid you not, you make it to the other side, because God probably won't fix one thing, he'll fix 40. And you get to the other side and you're like, wow, not only do I have 40 things when I needed like 8 things fixed, but I have so much wealth of character, of patience now, of kindness, of wealth. You know, maybe I've got a nice place with a spare room. I can help all these people out. And now maybe you have friends who have marital issues and you can be like, hey, no, I learned this thing from Joshua / Mr. Paladin 1. And let me tell you, I don't even know that I'm a Christian, but his God works. I love you guys and I want you to succeed and I want you to be great. And that's why I'm doing all this. If we can learn the little rules of Christianity, you know, the same way I think of Lord of the Rings, right? Gandalf had his magnificent power because he was a being of creation. If we can learn the why, right? Because it used to be just obey Christianity, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you the why. If we can learn the why, we'll trust the philosophy. If we can learn to trust the philosophy and put our faith in it, we'll completely align ourselves. We'll be like, all right, you know, after a while, God, my marriage is working, having a good time, my finances are good, my wealth is good, my relationships are good, life is moving and constructively great. Then you'll say, you know what, God, and this is the ultimate goal, I'm on board. You've helped me get everything working and functional. If you need me to do something, I'm there. That's a great place to be. Or maybe it's just like, I'm on board with your ways. That's what real Christianity is. It means Christ-like. It means Jesus is the great philosopher that we learn from. Jesus is the samurai. Jesus is the Jedi. Jesus is the knight, the holy knight. We learn to be like him because it's the most effective way to live, have mannerisms, and handle spiritual warfare. You guys are awesome. And don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. If you do not believe you are awesome, even if you're a horrible person, right, we're going to work you out of that being a horrible person. Even if you are in jail, I'm going to show you things you can do in jail to make your life wonderful, even though it doesn't seem like it. That's going to be a big episode. I'm sorry if it's not right away, but I have big plans for that. I love you. You guys are great. And remember that you're awesome. And if you believe you're not awesome, or someone tells you you're not awesome, or you feel doubting thoughts about you being awesome, those are demonic or earthly. And that's a form of pride. Putting yourself down, that's pride. You know, overbuilding yourself, that's pride. It's okay to know that you're great at things. It's okay to know that you're awesome. That is not pride. That is a truth. So don't forget it. Love all y'all. So I totally forgot something. Well, my hair got all disheveled. I forgot to say where in the Bible it talks about tithing. So tithing supports the church, basically. The priests would live on this back in the day. And with everyone giving money to the church takes care of the poor, the church takes care of the disenfranchised, and the church helps spread church culture. And remember, the church culture is, you know, do not steal, do not lie, do not murder, do not go after, do not like seek things that aren't yours, do not, you know, lust after things that aren't yours. You know, honor your mother and father, which means basically keep the wisdom, keep the ways. You know, God comes first, don't blaspheme. And these are good values that don't exist without the church. I'll see if I can find it, but Jordan Peterson says, we're lucky there was the Judeo-Christian ways. He said it's not in human nature to want to be civilized, to say no to things. And he said, you know, it's been about a decade that Judeo-Christian values aren't at the forefront, and we're going to suffer from it. You know, he says we've been living on the carcass of that, and it's true. You know, we've seen rise in suicide, rise in depression, rise in anxiety, rise in hopelessness. And being Christian, right, what do we get when we get possessed by the Holy Spirit? You get power, spiritual power, mental discipline, and mental peace, which are kind of three cornerstones of civilization, but definitely three cornerstones of healthy living, right? So that's another reason why it's important to tithe that a lot of people don't think about. Tithing helps the church be the church, grow. A lot of the problems that we don't like, you know, how to use your money, how to use your money wisely, how to get a good job, how to make good life choices, right? The church spreads programs and grows those programs. It puts a spotlight on society to help grow society. Anyway, so Deuteronomy chapter 22, verses 22 through 25. People of Israel, every year you must set aside 10% of your grain harvest. Also set aside 10% of your wine and olive oil, and your firstborn of every cow, sheep, and goat. So basically, they're different wealths that they worked for and created. The profits of their businesses. Take these to a place where the Lord chooses to be worshipped, and eat them there. This will teach you to always respect the Lord your God. But suppose you can't carry that 10% of your harvest to the place where the Lord chooses to be worshipped. If you live far away, or if the Lord gives you a big harvest, then sell this part and take the money there instead. So they take the money there and they communally celebrate, and then it would help the church. Now, a lot of pastors will say that's kind of the old way. it's not important to do it anymore. And I used to kind of think that too, except growing up, like, money never worked for me. And when we tithe and it does work, that shows us scientifically that there's meaning here. And if you ask God, he'll tell you. You can always bug God and he'll send messengers to let you know what his will is. So don't ever be afraid to call him and have him point things out. When I was younger, my parents were very against Dungeons and Dragons. They thought it was witchcraft. And I would ask God, and then he'd have a whole bunch of people. He had like my best friends logically work it out for me. He's like, my friend said, is it bad to watch a movie where there's murder? Because that's pretend. Is it bad to watch a play where there's murder? Because that's pretend. Like, we're pretending here. And unless your God is stupid, he knows it's pretend. So you're not actually killing goblins, and you're not actually worshiping God in this game. And then, my youth pastor said the same thing. A Christian therapist I was seeing at the time said the same thing. And it was hard to break my thinking that I hadn't been brought up to think. And, oh, dang it, I didn't write down the chapter and verse. We're back. So at some point, people are going to bring up 2 Corinthians 9:7. The Apostle Paul, the apostles are the 12 people chosen by Jesus to lead the church in the new era, right? So normally we have God leading his people, and then Jesus comes and really helps us with our intimacy with God, helps us understand. And then Jesus chooses 12 people to be his disciples. So think about, Luke Skywalker and a Padawan. In Star Wars, it's not just learning how to use a lightsaber, but the ways of the Force. You have Naruto, right? They each have their sensei. Naruto has Jiraiya, Sasuke has Orochimaru, Sakura has Tsunade, student and master. And master doesn't mean he's in charge of you. Master means like he's the master of his craft, like a master blacksmith, a master samurai. They've mastered what their skill set is. So Paul, who wrote a lot of books in the New Testament, says in 2 Corinthians 9:7, each of you must make up your own mind about how much to give, but don't feel sorry that you must give, and don't feel that you are forced to give. So what happened is, all of a sudden, people are getting healed and speaking languages they don't know and understanding languages they don't know and talking about the future. And the disciples could even heal recent death. The gift of healing lets you do that. So they were selling a lot of their possessions and giving it to the church to help this movement. And Paul is the one who kind of sets things straight when things are getting a little bit chaotic. And so he's saying, you don't have to go overboard. We appreciate it, but don't, don't feel sorry that you have to give, and don't feel that you are forced to give. So he's talking about people who are overgiving, potentially, who are maybe overgiving as opposed to undergiving. And the reason I'm telling you is this. There will become times when you think, is tithing really real? And you'll go back to your own ways and all your finances will crash. And the demonic will take this opportunity to make you think, oh, it was never really tithing in the first place. Tithing doesn't work. I've healed people and their spouses will say, oh, it's all in your imagination. So the way to know is when you're tithing, does money kind of take care of itself? And the way to know is when you stop tithing, does everything really get bad really fast? I remember when you stop tithing, it usually takes 2 weeks for everything to adjust and get back to normal once you resume the tithing. But yeah, I hope this helps because I don't want any of you guys to be poor. Ever.